Welcome back to the deep dive. It is so good to have you here with us. Today, we are going to do something a little bit different.
A lot different, actually.
Yeah, a lot different. Usually we are out there scanning the horizon, right? We're looking at economics or history or, the shifting sands of tech trends. But today we are turning the lens inward. We are looking at the machinery of the self.
It's a pleasure to be back. And you are right. This is a distinct departure for us. But honestly, I'd argue it's probably the most necessary one we have taken in a while because we spend so much time analyzing external systems like politics and markets and algorithms. But the most complex, the most glitchy and fascinating system we interact with every single day is the one sitting right between our own ears.
It is the operating system we literally cannot uninstall.
We really can't.
And to kick things off, I want to ask a question that sounds kind of simple on the surface, but if you actually sit with it for like 30 seconds, it gets kind of terrifying.
Okay, lay it on me.
Who exactly is driving the bus right now?
Oh, man. That is the question, isn't it?
It really is. Because we have this myth, right? This convenient little story, we tell ourselves that I am a singular thing. I am a solid block of marble. I have a personality, I have a set of beliefs, and I am consistent. I am the exact same guy at 8 in the morning as I am at 8 at night.
Right, the monolith myth.
Exactly. But if that is true, then why do I act like a completely different human being when I am talking to my boss versus when I am talking to my romantic partner?
Or when you are stuck in gridlock traffic on a Tuesday versus when you are 3 days into a beach vacation.
Yes, or when I'm hungry. I mean, the me that exists before lunch is a profoundly different guy than the me after a sandwich.
That's biology and psychology colliding right there.
So is one of them fake? I mean, is the work version of me a lie and the home version the truth? Or are they both just kind of performances?
See, this is where we get into the myth of the singular self.
Yeah.
We cling to this idea of being a monolith because it makes us feel stable. It makes us feel sane to think we are one consistent person. But the research we are unpacking today suggests something that feels deeply unsettling at first, but is actually incredibly liberating once you really get the hang of it. You are not a monolith. You are a committee.
A committee. I kind of love that, and I also kind of hate it. It sounds like a bureaucratic nightmare inside my head.
Oh, it can absolutely be a nightmare. Think of it as a cast of characters.
Oh.
Or, to use the terminology from the framework we are exploring today, you are a plurality.
A plurality.
Right.
Yeah.
There isn't just one driver on the bus. There are passengers. There is a navigator. There is a guy sleeping in the back row. And there is a rowdy kid throwing popcorn. And depending on the environment, depending on the activating event, different characters just grab the steering wheel.
So when I shift from boss mode to husband mode, I am not being fake. I am just passing the mic to a different committee member.
Precisely. Neither is fake. They are both highly functional parts of a complex system designed to navigate completely different terrains. And today we are going to map that system. We are continuing our exploration of the CBT framework, cognitive behavioral therapy. If you have been listening to our previous deep dives, the ABCDE model.
Right. Let's do a quick recap for the new listeners just to ground us. A is the activating event, so the trigger. C is the consequence, which is how we react or what we feel.
Correct. But today we are finally cracking open the black box right in the middle. We are looking at B, beliefs.
And we should clarify, we aren't talking about surface beliefs here, right? Like, I believe it will rain today, or I believe pizza is good.
No, not at all.
Wow.
We're looking at the operating system of the self, the deep code that intercepts the A and generates the C.
I really love the software analogy here. So we aren't just looking at the apps running on the screen. We are looking at the kernel, the BIOS, the stuff that loads before the Apple logo even appears on your phone.
That is a brilliant way to put it. We have 3 layers to decode today, and they function exactly like a layered software architecture. At the very bottom, the deepest, most ancient layer, we have archetypes. Think of this as the BIOS or the deep OS.
Okay, archetypes at the bottom.
Right. Above that, we have personas. These are the apps, the specific programs, or the social masks we wear. And at the very surface, the interface of the exact moment we are in, we have faces.
Archetypes, personas, faces. Okay, we are going to break these down one by one. But before we get into the heavy definitions, I want to touch on something the material highlighted right at the start. It is the why. Why do we even have these layers? Why didn't we just evolve to be one simple, consistent thing? What is the engine actually driving this whole machine?
It comes down to one fundamental evolutionary drive. Validation.
Validation.
Yes. The ultimate belief that underlies almost all human behavior is this desperate craving for self-confirmation. Every action you take, every word you speak, is subtly asking the world a question. Does this confirm who I think I am? Am I okay?
Yeah.
Do I belong?
Does this confirm who I think I am? Wow, that is heavy. But let me play devil's advocate here for a second. Isn't seeking validation usually seen as a weakness? I mean, we always hear advice like, oh, just don't care what people think, be yourself. But you were saying it is the literal engine of the car.
We do tell people not to care what others think, but that is honestly like telling a fish not to care about water. You have to look at this through the lens of evolutionary psychology. For 99% of human history, if you were not validated by your tribe, if you didn't fit in or you weren't seen as a contributing member, you were cast out.
Yeah.
In the Paleolithic era, being cast out meant death.
Right. There is no lone wolf survival strategy when there are literal saber-toothed tigers involved. You need the group.
Exactly. So our brains evolved this hypersensitive alarm system. We are constantly scanning for social feedback. This is the sociological concept of the looking glass self. We don't really know who we are in a vacuum. We know who we are by seeing our reflection in the eyes of others.
So if I see myself as a smart person, I am constantly looking for data points like grades or praise or just nods of agreement in a meeting that confirm, yeah, you were smart.
Yes. And here's the real kicker. We seek congruence. We want the outside world to perfectly match our internal map. If you see yourself as a victim, you might actually unconsciously look for situations where you get taken advantage of just so you can say, see, I knew it. The world is against me.
Wait, whoa. So we would rather be right about our own misery than wrong and happy?
Very often, yes. Predictability feels safer to the nervous system than chaos, even if that predictability is painful. And this brings us back to the spectrum of self. You mentioned earlier the idea of being a solid block of stone. The reality is more like a wardrobe.
A wardrobe?
Yeah, this massive closet full of costumes, full of identities, but most of us only wear a select few of them. We have our favorites: the responsible employee, the caring parent, the nice guy.
And what happens to the clothes we don't wear? Like the leather jacket we bought in 1999 and just shoved to the very back? Or the clown suit?
They don't disappear. They just wait in the dark. And this touches on the Jungian concept of the shadow. If you identify strongly as a calm, rational person, and you repress any impulse to be angry or emotional or loud, that choleric side doesn't just vanish. It goes into the shadow.
I have heard the analogy of holding a beach ball underwater. You can do it for a while, but it takes constant physical effort.
That is the perfect analogy. You are spending energy every minute of every day holding that angry ball underwater. And what happens when you get tired? Or when you're super stressed out?
Or drunk.
The ball shoots up and smacks you right in the face.
Exactly. That is when you snap. That is when the calm, rational person suddenly starts screaming at a waiter because the soup is slightly cold. It is a shadow possession. The key insight from our deep dive today is that mental health isn't about killing off the bad parts or the parts we just don't like. It is about integrating them. It is about knowing what is actually in your wardrobe so you aren't completely surprised when something falls off the hanger. I think that is a perfect transition to the bottom layer of the stack. Let's talk about the archetypes. This is the deep operating system. The material calls these the core beliefs in the CBT model, right?
Right. Archetypes are the deepest, most universal structures of the self. If we stick to that computer analogy, this is the machine code. It is the deep code shared by almost everyone. It really doesn't matter if you were born in New York in 1990 or in ancient Rome or in a remote village. You have these structures in you.
And they are often named after family roles, which I found really interesting, but also potentially confusing. We have the father, the mother, and the child. We need to be super clear here. We aren't talking about my actual dad named Bob, right?
Correct. We are definitely not talking about your biological parents.
Yeah.
We're talking about symbolic energy patterns, universal concepts. You can have father energy even if you are a woman who has never had children. You can have child energy even if you are an 80-year-old man.
Okay, let's break them down then. Let's start with the father. Now, when I hear father archetype, I instantly think of Zeus. I think of rules and thunderbolts.
That is a very good starting point, actually. The father archetype represents protection boundaries, structure, law, and order. It is the architectural force of the psyche. It is the part of you that says, this is the line, do not cross it. It is the force that builds walls to keep the tribe safe from the wilderness outside.
So it is essentially the disciplinarian.
It can be. But in its healthy form, it is also the provider and the mentor. It is the energy that looks at a chaotic situation and creates a step-by-step plan. It says, I will take responsibility for this mess.
But every archetype has a shadow side, right? What does a toxic father archetype look like?
The tyrant. the dictator.
Yeah.
If you have way too much father energy and no warmth, you become incredibly rigid. You become the rules rather than a human person. You crush creativity because to the tyrant, creativity just looks like dangerous chaos.
Got it. Okay, let's move to the mother. If the father is the walls of the house, what is the mother?
The mother is the hearth inside the house. The mother represents nurturing care, unconditional support, and emotional safety. While the father archetype might say you need to follow the rules to be safe, the mother archetype says, I accept you exactly as you are right now. You exist, therefore you are completely worthy.
That is a crucial distinction. Father love is often conditional, right? Do a good job and I am proud of you. Mother love is, or at least it should be, unconditional.
Exactly. It is the biology of gestation. The womb doesn't ask the fetus to perform tricks or pass a test before it feeds it. It just gives. In your own life, accessing your mother archetype means being able to actually soothe yourself when you fail. It is the internal voice that says, it's okay, we will try again tomorrow, instead of, you idiot, I can't believe you messed that up again.
I think a lot of us are missing that internal voice entirely. We have the internal critic, the negative father, on blast 24/7, but the internal mother is just on mute.
Very, very common. And the shadow of the mother, by the way, is the devouring mother, the smotherer, the one who protects you so much that you never actually grow up. She prevents you from facing the world because the world is deemed too dangerous.
Wow. And that leads us perfectly to the third one, the one that I think people struggle with the absolute most. The child. Now, I have to be totally honest here. When I read this, my knee-jerk reaction was, I don't want to be a child. I am an adult. I pay taxes. I have a mortgage.
You and everyone else. We live in a society that highly valorizes the adult, the producer, the protector. We view childishness as a literal defect. But the child archetype is absolutely crucial to a healthy psyche.
Sell me on it. Why do I need a child in the boardroom?
Because the child represents potential. It represents play, creativity, spontaneity, and wonder. But most importantly, the child represents the ability to receive.
Receiving. That is interesting.
Think about it functionally. The father gives protection. The mother gives care. The child receives it. If you repress your child archetype, you become incredibly rigid. You become brittle. You cannot accept help from anyone. You cannot accept a compliment. You can't let your partner comfort you when you had a terrible day because you feel like you have to be the strong adult all the time.
This actually hits really close to home. I realized, and this is a bit of a confession here, that I have spent a huge chunk of my adult life trying to essentially murder the child archetype in myself.
Really? How so?
Well, somewhere along the line, probably in my early 20s, I decided that being a real man or a real adult meant being the father 24/7. Always structured, always holding the frame, always being responsible.
Yeah.
I viewed any desire to just, play video games or be silly or be totally irresponsible for an hour as a moral failing.
Oh, man, that is the exact recipe for a massive midlife crisis. Absolutely. Because the child doesn't die. Like we said earlier, you just lock him in the basement.
Yeah.
And eventually he gets incredibly bored and starts burning the house down. That is when you see the 50-year-old guy who suddenly blows up his marriage, quits his stable job, buys a sports car, and starts dating a 20-year-old. That is the repressed child bursting out in a highly destructive, immature way because it wasn't allowed to play on the weekends.
So the takeaway here is you will have the child archetype in you, even if you live to be 90. You don't just grow out of it.
You don't grow out of it. You learn to parent it. You learn to manage the committee. You let the child out to be created at work or to dance like an idiot at a wedding. But you do not let the child drive the bus when you were doing your tax return.
Right. Use the right tool for the job. Okay, so we have the deep code, the father, the mother, the child. But we don't walk around the grocery store acting like mythological gods. We filter these deep energies through personas.
Exactly. We are now moving one step up the stack, from core beliefs to intermediate beliefs. The word persona literally means mask in Latin. It was the physical mask that actors wore on stage in ancient Greece to amplify their voice and clearly define their character to the audience.
So this is the interface we present to the world to function socially. It is the specific app we launched to handle a specific social task.
Yes. And personas are usually derived from one or a mix of those underlying archetypes. They are stable roles we play. We construct them usually in childhood or early adulthood to solve a specific problem.
To solve a problem. That is a key phrase. Let's look at a few common ones. Let's start with the leader.
The leader is clearly derived from the father archetype. It organizes, it protects, it gives direct feedback. It is a very positive manifestation. You solve the problem of chaos in a group by becoming the leader.
But like any app, it can crash, right? The material talked a lot about identity burnout.
Burnout happens when the mask becomes the skin. When you over-identify with the leader persona, you literally forget how to take it off. You go home to your family, and you are still the CEO. You are organizing dinner like it's a military operation. You are giving your spouse performance reviews on how they loaded the dishwasher.
Oof, I'm definitely guilty of that one. Saying something like, hey, here's where you could improve your dishwashing efficiency, I can tell you that does not lead to a happy evening.
It rarely does. And eventually you just run out of fuel because you aren't accessing the other vital parts of yourself, the mother for nurturing or the child for play. You either become a tyrant at home or you completely collapse from emotional exhaustion.
Let's look at another persona, one that I think is utterly rampant today. The people pleaser.
Ah, yes, the people pleaser. This one's derived primarily from the child archetype.
But hold on, explain that. Because people pleasers are often very attentive, very careful, very responsible. That seems like an adult behavior.
It looks adult on the outside, sure, but look at the internal motivation driving it. The strategy is fawning. It is a classic trauma response. The internal logic is, I am small like a child, and the world is big and scary and filled with dominant authority figures like fathers. If I keep everyone around me happy, if I anticipate their needs before they even have to ask, I will be safe. They won't yell at me. They won't hurt me.
So it is basically a preemptive strike of extreme niceness.
Right.
If I am totally indispensable and delightful, the dominant authority won't crush me.
Precisely. And the trap for the people pleaser is so insidious. To the outside world, they look like saints. Everyone says, oh, they're so nice. They help with literally everything. But internally, they are suffering immense anxiety. They're constantly scanning the room for micro-expressions of disapproval. They have absolutely zero boundary.
And they care deeply about what people think. But people isn't a specific person, is it?
No people is a generalized projection of the father archetype. It is the authority. They are exhausting themselves trying to please a ghost.
That is actually kind of tragic when you frame it that way. It is a distinct lack of freedom. You are just a hostage to everyone's potential reaction.
Exactly.
Okay, let's flip the coin. What about the child that doesn't fawn? What about the rebel?
The rebel, the trickster. This is the child that actively challenges authority. In mythology, this is the jester in the king's court.
I always love that dynamic. The king has absolute power. He can chop off anyone's head. But he keeps a guy around specifically to mock him.
Because the king, the father, needs the jester, the child or rebel, to keep him honest. Only the jester could tell the king the actual truth without being executed as long as he made it a joke. The rebel's psychological function is to challenge the status quo, to poke holes in the structure when the structure becomes too rigid or corrupt.
So in the modern world, who are the rebels?
Startups, completely disrupting legacy industries, comedians pushing boundaries, but also anti-system politicians or conspiracy theorists. They are constantly challenging the parent state, saying, you can't tell me what to do, I know the real truth. It is a very adolescent energy.
But is it good or bad?
It is entirely neutral. It depends completely on the context. A rebel is incredibly useful when the father, the authority, is actually corrupt or totally incompetent. You need a rebel to overthrow a literal tyrant. But a rebel without a cause, a rebel who challenges authority just because they hate being told what to do, that is just a teenager smashing mailboxes with a baseball bat. It is purely destructive.
So we have the deep OS, the archetypes, and we have the apps, the personas. Now we finally get to the surface.
The faces.
The faces. These correspond to automatic thoughts or automatic reactions in the CBT model. This is the interface of the precise moment. Faces are highly specific, highly reactive, and fleeting. You might wear 10 different faces in a single 30-minute meeting.
This is where it gets really granular, and I think this explains why we feel so inconsistent to ourselves. Let's take the leader persona again. It doesn't just have one face right. No, not at all. Imagine a leader in a crisis. The building is literally on fire. They put on face A, the commander, brows furrowed voice, loud finger pointing. You call 911, you grab the extinguisher. Everyone else out now. It is directive, sharp, no nonsense.
But if that exact same leader is dealing with a team member who is crying in their office because their dog just died, face A is a total disaster.
Absolute disaster.
Yeah.
If you bark orders at a grieving person, you completely break the relationship. So the leader must instantly switch to face B, the coach, or the supporter. The body language softens, the voice drops. I'm so sorry, how can I help? Take the rest of the day off. Same persona, the leader, same archetype, a mix of father and mother, but a completely different face.
This brings up a story from the source material that I found so relatable. It is about a retail conflict. And since we are adapting this to a conversation, I am actually going to step into the shoes of the protagonist here to tell the story, because I feel like I have literally been this exact guy.
Walk us through it. This is the perfect case study.
Okay, so imagine this. My wife and I are at a big box store. We need to return a defective product. Let's say it's a really expensive blender. No, me. I hate returns. I hate the potential for awkwardness. I absolutely hate conflict. So as we approach the customer service counter, I physically step back. I start looking at something on a shelf nearby, pretending to be fascinated by a display of AA batteries.
Okay, freeze frame right there. What face are you wearing in that exact second?
I am wearing the face of the avoidant child. I am activating the people-pleaser persona, specifically the flight face. I fear the judgment of the authority figure, the store clerk. I just want to be totally invisible. I don't want to be perceived as the difficult customer.
Right. You have temporarily regressed. You are in child mode. The store clerk represents the father or the authority. You're actively avoiding the wrath. Then what happens?
The clerk starts giving my wife a really hard time. He is rude. He sighs loudly. He implies she broke the blender. He raises his voice and says, "Look, lady, I can't do anything about this. You broke it."
And what happens to your nervous system?
Snap. Something literally flips in my brain. Suddenly the batteries are not interesting at all. I turn around. I step right up to the counter, physically inserting myself between the clerk and my wife. My posture totally changes. I puff my chest out. My voice drops an octave. I lean in and say, "Excuse me, you do not speak to her that way. Call your manager right now."
And just like that, you swapped the operating system.
Completely. I went from child to father, specifically the protector or the aggressive leader. I stepped in to defend my territory, my family.
This demonstrates so perfectly how dynamic our faces are. We ping-pong between archetypes based purely on the situation. The clerk's aggression, his toxic negative father energy, forced you right out of your avoidant child state, became an existential threat to your tribe, your wife, so your internal system launched a protector app instantly.
It is like a dance, or honestly a combat sport.
It is a dance. And this leads us to the real practical application of all this deep theory. Decoding behavior. We call it reverse engineering the self.
Because we can't actually see people's source code. I can't look at someone in a meeting and see a floating text box above their head that says running father _ archetype.xe.
Exactly. We have to work backward from the observable data. We observe the face, the specific action, the tone of voice, the micro expression. Then we ask, what role are they playing right now? That gives us the persona. Is he playing the boss, the victim, the martyr? And from there, we deduce the archetype, the core motivation at the bottom.
And once you start seeing this framework, you see it absolutely everywhere, especially the interplay between people. It really explains why some people just instantly, inexplicably annoy us.
The interplay is fascinating. Identities interact exactly like chemical compounds. Let's go back to the workplace for a second. If a boss acts like an authoritarian father, yelling, demanding, controlling, micromanaging every detail, he is unconsciously pushing his employees into a very specific psychological corner.
He is inviting them or really forcing them to act like a child.
Yes, that is the only complementary role to tyrannical father. And the employees usually only have two choices in the child spectrum: submission, which is the people pleaser, or rebellion, which is the rebel, or the angry teenager.
So they either cower and say, "Yes, sir, sorry, sir, I'll work late," or they go behind his back and slacks off, or metaphorically slashes tires.
Exactly. It is very, very hard to stay in a grounded adult mode when someone is blasting toxic father energy right at you. It triggers all your own childhood programming. You feel physically small.
That is the real challenge of maturity, isn't it? Can I stay in adult or partner mode even when you're acting like a screaming toddler or a tyrannical parent?
That is the literal definition of emotional regulation. If you can stay in your center, you break the cycle. If you respond to a screaming boss with calm, firm adult boundaries, like, "I understand you are very upset about this error, but I cannot speak to you when you are yelling, 'Let's reconvene in 10 minutes,' you force them to shift. They cannot keep playing the father if there is no child in the room to dominate. You break the game."
That is a superpower. Now, before we get to the practical tools, I want to touch on one more thing from the research that totally blew my mind. Projections. We don't just do this dance with other people. We project these human archetypes onto non-human things.
We project them onto absolutely everything. The human brain loves to anthropomorphize the world. Look at the state or the government.
Oh, for sure.
For many people, politically, the government is the mother. We expect it to feed us, to care for us, provide health care, keep us safe from the storm. When it fails to do that, we don't just feel annoyed. We feel deeply abandoned like a neglected child.
Or for others, it is the father. We expect the state to punish the bad guys, enforce the strict rules, and secure the borders.
Right. But it goes even simpler than massive institutions. Think about a coin toss,
Yeah.
or a magic 8-ball, or a talisman. Why do intelligent people flip a coin to make a difficult life decision?
Because they just can't decide.
Yes, but look deeper into the psychology. If I have to choose between job A and job B, the responsibility is incredibly heavy. If I choose wrong, it is my fault. But if I flip a coin,
Then it is fate.
fate decided, the universe decided. Fate is the ultimate father figure in that specific moment. It relieves the child of the terrifying burden of choice. The logic is, I didn't ruin my life, the coin did.
Wow, even a quarter is a stand-in for a parent. That is wild to me. It really shows how desperate we are for that structure. We are constantly looking for a grown-up to tell us what to do, even if the grown-up is a tiny piece of metal.
It's the human condition. We are all just looking for the parents we either had or desperately wish we had.
So we have mapped the territory here. We have the archetypes, the father, mother, child, the personas, the leader, pleaser, rebel, and the faces. We know how they interact like chemical compounds, but what do we actually do with this? How does this help the listener who is just trying to get through their Tuesday without screaming at a coworker?
It helps immensely because it gives you a manual for your own machine. Instead of being a confused passenger on the bus wondering why you keep driving off cliffs, you can start to see exactly who is grabbing the wheel. And that leads us to our conclusion and a really great practical exercise.
Let's summarize the key insights first. What is the big, massive takeaway?
Insight number 1, and I cannot stress this enough, there are no bad archetypes.
Really, none.
None. The rebel is absolutely necessary for innovation. The aggressive protector is necessary for physical safety. The submissive child is necessary for deep learning and romantic intimacy.
So definitely don't try to kill the child like I did for a decade.
Please do not kill the child. Dysfunction isn't about having these parts. It's about using the wrong tool for the job. It is about a severe lack of integration.
Like using the submissive child face in a tough salary negotiation.
Exactly. Or using the harsh commander face when your spouse is just trying to vent about a bad day.
So we have 3 really practical questions for our listeners to carry with them this week. This is your mental toolkit.
Question 1 is the self-check. What face am I wearing right now? And what persona is this serving? Just naming it in your head, saying, I am being the avoidant child right now, gives you immense distance. It breaks the trance. You are no longer the child. You are the adult observer of the child.
That is the metacognition piece, creating that little gap of awareness. Question 2 is the other check. What face is the other person wearing? Are they subtly inviting me into a specific role?
This one is crucial for stopping pointless conflicts. If you realize, oh, wow, my partner is being the critical parent right now, and they're unconsciously trying to force me to be the apologetic child, you can actively choose to decline the invitation. You can stay grounded in adult mode.
And question 3 is the productivity check. Is this dynamic actually working? Should I go to my mental wardrobe and change clothes?
Exactly. Sometimes you just need to physically step out of the room, take a deep breath, and consciously put on a totally different mask. You say to yourself, okay, the rebel isn't getting me what I want in this meeting. I need to put on the diplomat.
Before we wrap up, we promised an interactive exercise. This is called the actor inside.
This is a visualization technique. You can do this later when you have a quiet moment alone. I want you to imagine a theater stage. You are standing right in the middle of it. In the wings backstage, there is a large wardrobe rack. Hanging there are masks or full costumes of personas you never ever wear, the ones you actively judge.
So if you are always the tough guy who never cries, maybe there is a fragile romantic mask hanging there. Or if you are always the hyper-responsible one, there is a wild party animal mask.
Exactly. Pick the one that feels the absolute most foreign to you, the one you're actually afraid of, the one you think is weak or stupid or evil. Now, in this completely safe mental space, put it on just for 2 minutes.
Visualize yourself actually wearing it. How do you stand? How does your voice sound? What does the world look like through those specific eyes?
Feel the pure energy of it. The goal here isn't to become this person permanently. The goal is to realize that this potential exists within you. You are not faking it. You are just accessing a dormant locked room in your own house. And just knowing that room is there makes you larger. It makes you whole.
It really reminds me of the hero's journey concept we have talked about before on the show.
It is the hero's journey. The true journey of psychological individuation isn't about becoming better. It is about becoming whole. It is about accepting that you are the criminal, the saint, the child, and the king. You are all of them. And true maturity is learning to sit at the head of that table and manage the committee rather than letting the loudest, most panicked voice drive the bus off a cliff.
Sitting at the head of the table, I really love that image. You aren't silencing the voices, you're just the chairman of the board. You listen to the child, you listen to the father, and then you, the core self, make the final decision.
Precisely. That is what true psychological freedom looks like.
Well, this has been honestly a bit of a therapy session for me. I think I need to go buy a toy or something today. Reconnect with the child.
I highly recommend it. Go get some Legos.
Legos it is! Thank you all for taking this deep dive into your own operating system with us today. We really hope this helps you navigate the committee inside your head a little better this week.
Goodbye, and take care of all yourselves.
See you next time.